You think people are thinking about you way more than they actually are, and that thought alone has probably controlled more of your life than you realize, not in obvious ways, in quiet ways. The message you typed, then deleted. The opinion you never shared. The outfit you changed 3 times. The opportunity you almost took, until you imagined people judging you. You call it being careful. Sometimes it's fear wearing better clothes. And the strange part is, you may already know this, a part of you already suspects that most people are too busy dealing with their own mess to obsess over yours. But knowing that intellectually and feeling it are two completely different things. Because fear doesn't care about logic. Fear cares about survival. And your brain, ancient, protective, slightly dramatic, keeps asking one question. What if they judge you? What if you say something stupid? What if you embarrass yourself? What if they think you're weird? What if they don't like you? So you adapt. You shrink. You edit yourself in real time. And after a while, something strange happens. You stop noticing you're doing it. It becomes automatic. You walk into a room and instantly scan faces. Did I say too much? Did that sound awkward? Was that joke dumb? Did they pause before replying? Why did they look at me like that? Your mind becomes a surveillance system, constantly monitoring, constantly analyzing, constantly protecting, exhausting, right? But here's what nobody realizes. The exhaustion isn't coming from social interaction. It's coming from self-monitoring. That's the real drain. Not talking. Not being seen. Being hyper-aware of yourself every second. And this is where things start falling apart. Because when your attention is trapped on yourself, you stop living. You stop experiencing the moment. Instead, you experience your performance inside the moment. Think about that. You're not at dinner enjoying the conversation. You're watching yourself talk at dinner. You're not posting something online because you genuinely want to share. You're imagining reactions before anyone even sees it. You're not living. You're managing perception. Big difference. And at first, this feels harmless. You tell yourself it makes you socially intelligent, self-aware, polite, strategic. But there's a darker side. When your brain becomes obsessed with how others see you, your entire identity slowly becomes outsourced. Your worth starts depending on invisible approval. Now your mood depends on text replies, tone shifts, facial expressions, likes, views, tiny signals, and suddenly, your nervous system is letting strangers decide whether you feel safe. That's when the real problem begins, because you start building a personality around avoiding discomfort, not around truth. You become more acceptable, less real, more polished, less alive. And maybe nobody notices. That's the ironic part. The thing you fear most, judgment, is often happening far less than you think. Wait until you realize why. Most people aren't focused on you, because they're focused on themselves. Read that again. The person you think is judging your awkward pause. They're worried about something embarrassing they said 3 minutes ago. The person you think noticed your insecurity. They're thinking about how they looked. The person you think remembers your mistake from last week. They probably forgot it by dinner. Not because they're cruel, because they're human. Everyone is the main character in their own mental movie. Everyone, that includes you. And this changes everything. Because the pressure you feel mostly comes from an illusion. Psychologists call it the spotlight effect. You feel like a spotlight is constantly on you. Like every flaw is magnified, every mistake is public. Every awkward moment is unforgettable. But the spotlight is mostly in your head. That doesn't mean your fear feels fake. It feels painfully real. Your heart races, your stomach tightens. You replay conversations at 2 a.m. like your brain got hired as a full-time embarrassment archivist. Why did I say that? Why did I laugh like that? Why am I like this? And if that sounds familiar, there's something deeper happening, something most people miss. This isn't only about fear of judgment. It's about something underneath that fear, something much older, much more personal. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's the hidden truth. You're not actually afraid of people thinking about you. You're afraid their judgment might confirm something you secretly fear about yourself. That's the part nobody talks about. When criticism hurts too much, it usually isn't because of the criticism alone. It's because it touches an old wound. Someone says you're awkward, and it hurts because a part of you already worries that it's true. Someone ignores you, and it hurts because some buried part whispers, "See? You don't matter." Someone rejects you. And suddenly it feels bigger than one moment. It feels like proof. But here's what most people miss. Other people's reactions are not objective truth. They're filtered through their fears, moods, biases, insecurities, and unresolved pain. Someone can dislike you because you remind them of someone else. Someone can judge your confidence because it exposes their insecurity. Someone can call you too much because they've spent years making themselves smaller. Their reaction tells you something, but not always about you. And this changes everything. Because if people's opinions aren't absolute truth, then why are you obeying them like law? Why are you handing strangers the authority to define you? Think about how much life gets delayed because of imagined judgment. Starting the business, posting the video, approaching the person, changing careers, wearing what you want, speaking honestly. So much life gets paused, waiting for permission nobody is qualified to give. And the weird part is, even if you do everything perfectly, someone will still dislike you. Read that again. No version of you exists that everybody approves of. Not the quieter version, not the smarter version, not the more attractive version, not the more successful version. There is no safe mode. This is the part most people resist. They spend years trying to become unjudgeable, impossible task. Because judgment is not a bug in human behavior, it's built in. People judge, they compare, they assume, they misunderstand, always have, always will. So the real freedom was never about controlling people's thoughts. It was about becoming less controlled by them. Huge difference, and maybe that sounds obvious, but living it feels different. Because freedom doesn't feel like confidence all the time. Sometimes freedom feels like discomfort. It feels like posting while anxious, speaking while nervous, showing up while imperfect, being seen before you feel ready. That's real courage, not fear disappearing, fear losing authority. That's when identity starts changing. You stop asking, "How do I make sure nobody judges me?" and start asking, "Why am I abandoning myself to avoid judgment?" That question hits differently, because now the problem isn't them. It's the habit of self-betrayal. And once you notice that, you start catching it everywhere. You notice how often you silence yourself, how often you shapeshift, how often you trade authenticity for temporary safety. And maybe for the first time, you feel something unexpected, relief. Because if most of the pressure was internal, then maybe the prison door was never locked. Maybe you were holding it shut. And no, this doesn't mean you stop caring completely. You're human. Social belonging matters. Rejection stings. Embarrassment happens. That won't disappear. But something powerful changes when you stop treating discomfort like danger. An awkward moment becomes a moment, not an identity. A mistake becomes information. Not proof of failure. Someone's opinion becomes perspective, not truth. That shift is everything, because now you can breathe inside your own life again. You can walk into rooms without performing so hard. You can speak without rehearsing every word. You can exist without constant self-correction. And maybe the most beautiful part, you start noticing other people differently too. You realize they're scared, they're overthinking, they're doubting themselves, they're wondering if you're judging them. Funny, isn't it? Everyone afraid of everyone, everyone trapped in their own spotlight, everyone forgetting that most people are too busy surviving their own thoughts. So if there's something you've been delaying, something fear keeps shrinking. Maybe ask yourself one question. If nobody was thinking about me, what would I do? Not tomorrow. Not when confidence arrives. Now. Because one day you may realize something painful. It wasn't other people's opinions that stole your life. It was your belief in them. And if this felt a little too real, maybe that's the part you shouldn't ignore.